So the title of this talk, An Attacker Looks at Docker, Approaching Multi-Container Applications. I think that should show you a little bit about the intent of this. It's an unapologetically red team talk. So there have been good defensive talks on Docker and containerization. The world in which I operate and my teams operate is red team and penetration testing. And so our goal is to quickly get ourselves up to speed with new technologies, and the purpose of this talk is to take somebody who is a penetration testing practitioner or somebody who's learning penetration testing even, and the training and the education that they've gone through to get to that point, and try to apply that to multi-container applications versus traditional monolithic applications. So my background in this, in my graduate studies at Mississippi State University, I helped develop the cyber operations program there for the NSA Centers of Academic Excellence. My research was in industrial control systems with vulnerabilities in human-machine interface software, finding and classifying vulnerabilities in those systems. After a while, as a professor at Mississippi State University, we formed a private company to do penetration testing, vulnerability analysis of hardware systems and embedded systems. We did forensics work and a little bit of everything. And then recently, within the past 3 years, we were acquired by major accounting firm Horn LLP and became Horn Cyber. And so at Horn Cyber, I'm Director of Cyber Operations, which is my made-up title, for overseeing anything offense-oriented. And so that includes our penetration testing, that includes red teaming engagements, and that even includes when we look at applications themselves. And that's important because one of the bigger points for this talk is to say that if you're a penetration tester sitting out there right now, one of the side effects of everybody adopting and going into containerization is that your skills as a penetration tester now make you a pretty decent application security specialist too, as far as looking on the insides of applications for vulnerabilities. Whereas previously your training probably gave you some insight to the internals of applications, but you mostly worked outside of them at the network layer. In previous talks that I've given on this subject, on the subject of penetration testing, involved the operational security of testing engagements. It's relevant to this because some of the tools and some of the processes that we're currently developing for penetration tests, that we're trying to redefine penetration testing. We're trying to formalize the field more, develop tools for doing large-scale engagements efficiently with multiple people, and the development of those tool sets is naturally, of course, now using containers. And so I've had to come up to speed with it. My teams have had to come up to speed with it. And in the process of developing some of these tool sets, we've learned a lot about what it looks like if an attacker looks at these things. And so the intentions for this talk for you to walk out of here with is I want to make a strong point, and it's not just about the technology, because you're actually going to find that to be very simple here. The intention of this is to make a strong point about the relationship between an attacker's skill set, your skill set, and your development of your skill set over time through training or experience, versus trends in the way developers use new technologies like containerization or any of the other sort of trendy technologies that are out there. And so how do we leverage what we already know, what we trained with, what we have experience with, and how do we look at learning new technologies moving forward? And so the goal is to provide a hacker experience with exploitation and post-exploitation of networks of systems and exposure to the testing of applications that contain multiple containers. And this is compared to monolithic applications. A monolithic application might be something that it all runs on one system. It may all be one code base, one binary even, or a set of PHP files that make up a single web application. There's a lot of different things here, but essentially it's one program flow. It may have forked copies of itself and threads and things like that, but ultimately it's one sort of monolithic program. And to gain insight into how it works, you need to hook into variables. You need to attach with a debugger. You need to be in memory space alongside with it. Whereas with a multi-container application, the idea here is that you can build these things out of Lego-like containers, combined with each other and not have to develop as much. And they can be different technologies. And so My examples are going to be concrete examples with Docker, and there's more examples in the white paper associated with this talk. And the things that I'm showing just leverage common practices in pen testing. The inspiration for this speech is H.D. Moore and Val Smith's DEF CON 15 talk, which is ancient now, but I think it's a classic, tactical exploitation. And so they covered sort of a penetration testing in tactical techniques and tricks and tips and things, and it's a very good talk if you haven't seen it. And of course the target audience of this is red team. Now, if there are any blue team members who snuck in here, that's fine too. They might learn something, right? Prior art in this field, there's not been a lot of pure offense talks on Docker and containerization. Mortman, Gratifiore, Bettini, and Cherney, and Dolce, the talks that you see listed on this slide, these are very good talks on the security of Docker, and there's lots of things about the underlying implementation and architecture, vulnerabilities in earlier versions of the platform, talking about targeting Docker developers through misconfigurations of their development environments, kernel capabilities, low-level implementation of Docker. All those things are very interesting, but if we talk about vulnerabilities at that layer of Docker, these are things that get fixed over time, right? And so the nature of how developers use Docker opens them up to way more vulnerabilities than any Docker vulnerabilities in the platform itself that can be fixed by downloading a new version of Docker, right? Or deploying something new there. The Docker documentation